Getting power is difficult. Keeping it, even harder. In this third episode of the Power Book of Podcasts, based on Bruce Bueno de Mesquita and Alistair Smith's The Dictator's Handbook, we explore how leaders maintain their grip on power, even in the face of crises, popular anger, and international pressure. And it all starts with one rule: keep your essentials happy. The key to staying in power isn't love, it's loyalty. And not just any loyalty. Loyalty from the essential coalition, the small group that can make or break your rule. Once in power, leaders must make a simple but ruthless calculation. Do what benefits the essentials, even if it harms the broader population. This explains why so many rulers divert public resources to private hands, pass corrupt contracts, or suppress dissent. It's not about ideology, it's about survival. Take Saddam Hussein. He kept his inner circle, mostly from his hometown Tikrit, extremely well-paid and privileged. They controlled the military, security, and intelligence apparatus. As long as they were rewarded, they had every reason to keep Saddam in power, or consider Bashar al-Assad in Syria. His survival during the civil war depended on the Alawite elite and top army commanders. He armed and protected them, even as much of the country burned. Why? Because losing them would mean losing everything. Even in democracies, this logic applies. Politicians often favor donors, party elites, and organized interest groups, because those are the people whose support they actually need. The masses, they matter only insofar as they vote, protest, or create costs. But the core supporters get the real attention. Let's take a closer look at this concept with more examples. In Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe held on to power for nearly 4 decades not through mass popularity, but by rewarding a narrow base of military and political elites. His government distributed land, diamonds, and state contracts to secure their loyalty. When he was finally removed in 2017, it wasn't due to popular protest. It was because the military coalition that had once backed him saw a better option. Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew, often praised for his technocratic success, also followed this model. While his governance style was more benevolent, he carefully cultivated an elite cadre of loyal ministers and civil servants. Promotions were based on loyalty, discipline, and results. By narrowing the field of influence and ensuring high rewards for the most competent and compliant, he secured lasting control. In North Korea, Kim Jong-un inherited a system built entirely around elite loyalty. The Songbun classification system determines each citizen's political loyalty and access to resources. Those at the top, military officials, party elites, and their families, enjoy privileged lives. Their loyalty is not ideological, but transactional. As long as the perks flow, defection remains rare. And consider Turkey under Erdogan. Over 2 decades, he built a loyal bureaucracy, filled the judiciary with allies, and rewarded business partners with lucrative contracts. Those who broke ranks, like members of the Gulen movement, were purged ruthlessly. Loyalty was rewarded. Disloyalty was punished. It's a model of carrot-and-stick discipline, executed with surgical precision. Why does this work across so many systems? Because humans, even powerful ones, respond to incentives. If staying loyal means safety, wealth, and influence, then betrayal becomes irrational. And when those benefits are doled out selectively, a ruler can create a game of competition among elites, ensuring they're too busy competing with one another to unite against the leader. But this system creates side effects. First, it breeds corruption. The reward structure incentivizes personal enrichment and favoritism. Second, it stifles innovation. Dissent and criticism are seen as threats. Third, it deepens inequality. The loyal elite thrive, while the rest of the population stagnates. Still, from the perspective of the leader, it works. What's more, the loyalty model isn't exclusive to politics. In corporations, CEOs often maintain power by cultivating a loyal executive team and board of directors. Those who toe the line are promoted. Those who dissent are marginalized. Consider how Jack Welch ran GE by identifying a vital few managers and ensuring they received stock options, bonuses, and career opportunities. Loyalty wasn't just expected, it was purchased. In religious institutions, the Pope's power depends not on millions of believers, but on a few hundred cardinals. Maintaining their support through appointments, doctrine, and influence ensures stability. In the criminal world, the logic is even clearer. A mafia boss survives not by appealing to the masses, but by securing absolute loyalty from a few lieutenants. Disloyalty is punished brutally. Loyalty is rewarded handsomely. Power persists because betrayal is too costly. Ultimately, loyalty is about trust, and trust is built on consistent rewards. Leaders who deliver for their inner circle, even at great cost to the public, create a fortress around their throne. This is the harsh logic of power. If you want to stay in charge, never forget who keeps you there. Money is power, and whoever controls the purse controls the system. To keep power, leaders must control the flow of resources and use it to reward their essentials. In autocracies, this often means direct control over oil, gas, or mining revenues. In democracies, it means controlling budgets, contracts, and subsidies. Take Russia, for example. Vladimir Putin doesn't just govern through laws or institutions. He rules through cash. State-owned giants like Gazprom and Rosneft are not just energy companies, they are political tools. By controlling who gets to manage these assets, who receives their contracts, and who benefits from their revenue streams, Putin ensures that loyalty is constantly bought and maintained. If an oligarch challenges the system, like Mikhail Khodorkovsky once did, he is stripped of wealth and power. The message is clear: your fortune depends on your loyalty. In Venezuela, Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro used oil revenues from PDVSA, the state oil company, to fund massive social programs and, more critically, to finance political patronage networks. Money was funneled to key military officials, political allies, and neighborhood leaders known as colectivos. When oil prices crashed, the collapse in loyalty followed quickly, creating a cycle of economic disaster and political repression. In the United States, the mechanisms are more institutional but no less strategic. Political appointments control who administers multi-billion-dollar agencies. Congressional appropriations steer money toward favored industries. Campaign donations ensure the cycle repeats. A senator or president might not hand out contracts directly, but through earmarks, tax breaks, and regulatory discretion, money flows where it politically counts. Controlling money also means controlling who doesn't get it. Leaders often use economic exclusion as punishment. In Ethiopia, during the rule of Meles Zenawi, regions that opposed the central government were denied infrastructure and investment. The message: comply and you'll receive benefits. Resist and you're cut off. This pattern is especially visible in hybrid regimes where elections are held but resources are centralized. In Turkey, municipalities governed by opposition parties have seen dramatic funding cuts from Ankara. Meanwhile, loyal districts receive generous support. This isn't just a political tactic, it's survival strategy. By keeping the money flowing through their hands, rulers ensure that their coalition remains dependent. The essentials know that defecting from the leader means risking not only influence but income. And the longer a leader stays in power, the more entwined these dependencies become. Consider Egypt under Hosni Mubarak. His regime controlled the business environment so tightly that many large enterprises required ties to the ruling family or military to operate at scale. This ensured that business elites were deeply invested in the survival of the status quo. Even in corporate environments, CEOs manage internal budgets in similar ways. Divisions that support leadership receive more investment. Dissenting departments face cuts. Bonuses and promotions are tied to loyalty, not just performance. The result? An internal economy shaped around compliance. But there's a catch. When control over money becomes too centralized, it stifles initiative and innovation. If everyone is waiting for top-down approval to act, systems become rigid. And when economic downturns hit, the entire structure becomes vulnerable. Because when the money runs out, so does the loyalty. That's why effective leaders don't just hoard resources. They build systems of conditional access. You're not guaranteed wealth forever. You receive it only so long as you're useful and loyal. In Rwanda, Paul Kagame has perfected this model. His government tightly monitors foreign aid, business development, and NGO activity. Access to funding, permits, and contracts flows through the presidency. Allies are rewarded with economic opportunity. Critics are sidelined, or worse. In China, the CCP uses financial surveillance and social credit systems to reinforce this control. Banks are state-aligned. Loans go to politically safe projects. Entrepreneurs know that their rise is conditional. One wrong step, and everything can vanish. Controlling the money also allows a ruler to shape the public narrative. Media outlets, for example, depend on advertising and licensing. In many regimes, opposition outlets are starved of revenue or buried in fines. Supportive outlets are subsidized, given access, and shielded. The result? An information landscape shaped by financial dependency. Finally, money enables long-term institutional capture. Loyalists are placed in oversight agencies, courts, and legislatures. Once embedded, they help maintain the flow of benefits and shield the leader from accountability. So, control the money. And you control not just today's coalition, but tomorrow's too. The most successful rulers understand this deeply. They don't just govern their people, they finance their loyalty. If power is a game, the surest way to win is to rig the rules. Or better yet, decide who gets to play it all. This is the core insight behind limiting access. Reduce competition, and your grip on power becomes harder to challenge. The fewer the rivals, the safer the throne. In authoritarian regimes, this is often straightforward. Political opposition is outlawed, censored, or imprisoned. But even in more subtle systems, the same tactics apply, often with a democratic veneer. Let's start with the most obvious examples. In China, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, operates as a one-party state. Elections exist, but only within the confines of party-approved candidates. Dissenting voices are filtered out before they can even appear on a ballot. The media, the internet, and the education system are all structured to reinforce party orthodoxy and limit the rise of alternative narratives. Iran takes a more theatrical approach. The country holds elections, but the Guardian Council, a group of clerics and jurists, must first approve all candidates. Reformists are regularly disqualified. The result is an illusion of choice within a tightly controlled framework. But democratic countries also use these tools, more subtly. In the United States, gerrymandering is a classic form of access limitation. Political districts are redrawn in ways that favor incumbents or one party, reducing genuine competition. Campaign finance rules, ballot access laws, and media control all serve to entrench those already in power. Hungary under Viktor Orban provides another case. Orban has gradually eroded media independence, restructured the judiciary, and rewritten election laws to favor his party. While Hungary still holds elections, the playing field is so uneven that genuine competition has become a distant memory. And then there are emergency powers. These tools, often introduced in times of crisis, can be used to suspend rights, delay elections, or silence opponents. In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu faced criticism for using the COVID-19 pandemic to delay court proceedings related to his corruption charges and to restrict opposition organizing. Even if the moves were legal, their political benefits were undeniable. Once out of the system, these people couldn't organize, influence, or even participate in politics. In Russia, Alexei Navalny's repeated arrests, disqualifications from elections, and eventual poisoning sent a clear message to anyone thinking of challenging the status quo. The cost of participation is too high. Access can also be limited economically. If starting a newspaper, running a business, or launching a campaign requires government licenses, and those licenses are controlled by the ruling elite, then dissent becomes a bureaucratic impossibility. In Rwanda, under Paul Kagame, many opposition leaders and journalists have been exiled, imprisoned, or silenced. New political parties are technically legal but face such high administrative and legal barriers that they cannot operate meaningfully. But this is not only about politics. It's about shaping the entire ecosystem of influence. In education, leaders promote ideologically aligned curricula. In universities, tenure and funding often depend on political loyalty. In religious spaces, governments approve or suppress certain religious leaders or movements. The goal in all these cases is not to eliminate all opposition, that's too difficult. The goal is to reduce opposition to a manageable level, one that cannot coordinate effectively or build enough momentum to threaten the ruling coalition. There's also a psychological dimension. By limiting access, rulers can create a sense of futility among the public. If people believe that change is impossible, that elections are rigged, that rivals will always be crushed, then they are less likely to organize or resist. Apathy becomes a powerful stabilizer of authoritarian rule. In economic terms, this is known as barrier to entry. In politics, it's a firewall to protect incumbents. What's most effective is when these barriers are hidden behind the facade of democracy or legality. A country may claim to uphold freedom of the press, but use libel laws or advertising monopolies to bankrupt independent outlets. A country may hold elections, but disqualify candidates through technicalities. A government may allow protests, but restrict permits, use surveillance, or deploy riot police to intimidate citizens into silence. Even social media, once a space of free expression, is being harnessed. Bots, algorithms, and troll farms can overwhelm dissenting voices, while platforms are pressured to censor content under vague security laws. Limiting access is also about time. The longer you're in power, the more time you have to institutionalize your dominance. Control the education of the next generation. Shape the narratives in textbooks. Reward young loyalists with early promotions. Slowly but surely, the pipeline of competition dries up. This is how power ossifies. Not with a bang, but with 1,000 paper cuts. And the result? A political system that looks open, but is structurally closed. In the next section, we'll see how rulers maintain their systems not just through control and restriction, but also through a balance of fear and favor. Because the real art of political survival isn't in preventing rivals from rising, it's in making them too afraid or too rewarded to try. To keep power, rulers must master the twin strategies of fear and favor. These aren't just tools, they're the twin engines of political survival. Fear works by deterring betrayal. Favor works by encouraging loyalty. Throughout history, those who stayed in power longest were those who could balance these forces skillfully, rewarding those who served them and punishing those who posed a threat. Let's start with fear. Fear is not always visible. In autocracies, it may take the form of imprisonment, torture, or execution. But in more open societies, it's often psychological. Threats of exposure, audits, lawsuits, or blacklisting. The goal is to make the cost of disloyalty higher than the reward. In Stalin's Soviet Union, fear was institutionalized. Purges, secret police, and public trials kept even the most loyal officials in a constant state of anxiety. Nobody was safe, which paradoxically made everyone obey. In modern times, Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman arrested dozens of princes and businessmen in 2017, holding them at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. The message? Loyalty is not optional. Step out of line and your wealth, or freedom, disappears. But too much fear can backfire. It breeds paranoia, resentment, and eventually rebellion. That's where favor comes in. Favor, in the form of privileges, promotions, wealth, or status, keeps the essential coalition loyal. The goal isn't to make everyone happy, but to make the right people comfortable enough that they won't risk change. In democracies, favor might come in the form of political appointments, campaign donations, or regulatory breaks. In autocracies, it's often cash, land, licenses, or monopolies. Singapore, under Lee Kuan Yew, used favor masterfully. Civil servants and ministers were paid exceptionally high salaries. The idea being that a well-paid bureaucracy would be both efficient and loyal. Corruption was punished, but loyalty was rewarded with prestige and prosperity. In the United States, presidential power is built not just on votes, but on networks of appointments, lobbyists, and committee chairs. Political allies gain influence, funding, and future opportunities. Those outside the circle face marginalization. Rwandan President Paul Kagame, known for his authoritarian efficiency, ensures his allies are economically empowered through government contracts, development projects, and NGO access. Those who oppose him risk jail or exile. The result? A tightly controlled system with little room for dissent. Another example. China's Xi Jinping has used both fear and favor with equal intensity. His anti-corruption campaign removed rivals and terrified the bureaucracy. But those who aligned with his agenda rose rapidly. He created a new elite class of loyal administrators, all dependent on his continued dominance. The trick is balance. Too much favor breeds complacency. If allies feel entitled, they may stop delivering results. Too much fear and they may plot behind your back. Smart leaders rotate rewards and punishments. They keep everyone guessing. They create a system where no one feels entirely secure, but no one wants to leave. And they institutionalize these practices. In the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos used a blend of fear and favor for decades. Journalists were jailed or co-opted. Political rivals were exiled or given posts. The system was corrupt, but stable, until the balance collapsed. In corporate governance, CEOs do the same. Bonuses and promotions incentivize loyalty. Layoffs and demotions punish dissent. The boardroom becomes a smaller version of the state. Even religious institutions apply this logic. Clergy are rewarded with higher positions for doctrinal loyalty, while heretics are excommunicated. The Vatican, for centuries, has operated through both fear of damnation and the promise of sainthood. What unites all these systems is the recognition that people respond to risk and reward. The art of leadership, then, is not in ruling through vision, but in managing expectations. You punish just enough to maintain control. You reward just enough to keep ambition alive. And when you do both skillfully, you create a regime where few dare to rebel, and even fewer want to. In the end, staying in power is not about charisma, speeches, or grand visions. It's about knowing who really matters, what they need, how to keep them loyal. The leader who masters this wins. In the next episode, we'll look at how this system breaks down and why revolutions often replace one form of bad governance with another. Until then, remember, politics isn't about the people, it's about the players.